So we are going to get started now. Hi, this is Mike Duvall from the campaign workshop. And then I also have Joe Fold with us as well, and the team from the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce as well, Mary and Lucero. If you all want to kind of start us with an introduction and go from there. Thank you again for everyone tuning in now.
Hi, everyone. This is Mary. I am the Manager of Government Affairs and Policy at the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and we are so excited that you are here today and that you are coming to our Legislative Summit. We have an excellent program in store, and we are close to the finish line with Legislative Summit, and we wanted to respond to some of the feedback that we've had in years past. And that is that some of our local chambers want to know what's the best way to have an effective Hill meeting. So we are happy that we found the campaign workshop because they are experts in the advocacy field, and they will be able to give not only you guys, but us, the tools that we need to have some of the best Hill meetings that we have ever had. So quickly, I just wanted to talk about the mission of the organization, which you all know because it's a mission that we share. But the purpose of the Legislative Summit and the purpose of these Hill Day meetings is to support the growth and foster the economic development of the Hispanic business community. When you look at the slides, if you go forward just a little bit, and we will come back to our speakers. We have 4.37 million Hispanic small businesses in the United States, and they're contributing $700 billion to that economy each and every year. However, Hispanic businesses are struggling to generate revenue on par with a non-Hispanic business in the United States. And that's because there are structural and institutional and racial barriers that are, quite frankly, unjust. So our goal as USHCC and our goal as a collective voice of Hispanic Chambers of Commerce is to overcome those unjust barriers and advocate on behalf of the greater Hispanic business community, because it's a community that's entrepreneurial, it's wonderful, and we have a great message to bring to our leaders in Congress and leaders in the Senate. So rolling back, we're going to put a very familiar voice on the line. Lucero is here, and she's going to kick us off and introduce us to our hosts for the day.
Yeah, so hi everyone on the line. Thank you so much for taking the time to join, and thank you to Mary for making that introduction into why we're doing what we're doing today. And so this is based off of your feedback. We know that our Legislative Summit is right around the corner, April 24th to 26th. All of your chambers as members are able to receive 2 complimentary registrations, and as you know, you all will be participating during Hill Day, and this is your opportunity to make sure that you take advantage of meeting with Booker's office or Cortez Masto or John Cornyn or Jennifer Gonzalez Colon. So the list can go on and on. And we want to make sure that you have all the tools and resources that you need. And for that, we've reached out to some friends that we've made here in DC, the campaign workshop. And so we have a few voices that you'll hear from throughout this webinar. One of them, who'll introduce himself, is Joe and Mike, who both have developed the content and have curated this specifically to you all. They know all about the USHCC, what our chamber members are about, the agenda, what's important to us, and we want to make sure that we give you the tools and resources that you need. So with that, I'll go ahead and kick it off to Joe and Mike to make sure that they can begin sharing the content.
Yeah, well, hey, this is Joe Fold, President of Campaign Workshop, and first of all, I want to thank you for being on the call today. What we're going to do is really go over the basics of how to create a productive Hill visit and what are the things that you want to get out of it, as well as how do you make sure that you're able to give something to legislative offices where maybe they're getting something out of it too, and you're really developing a long-term relationship. So, we work with all sorts of groups around the country on advocacy and political engagement. And one of the things that we think a meeting really matters is to really be prepared, to make sure you understand your message, and to really know the kind of follow-up you want after a meeting happens. And those three pretty simple steps will make for a good or a bad Hill visit if you don't do them, right? So if you're not prepared, if you don't know who you're meeting with, and don't try and get some information to begin with, dig in to try and figure out who the staff you're meeting with are, maybe what engagement you have, making sure that you know where and when that meeting is, and how long it's going to take you to just get around town. Those are basic things. I mean, you certainly don't want to start late. You want to be on time. But I think doing the research ahead of time is really what we found to be super helpful. You want to switch to the next slide?
Sure. I think we covered that.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry, you missed the preparation. So preparing for the lobby day. So anything that you can do to lock in a time, make sure that you know when you're going to be there, make sure that you're going to be there early, but then also really try and get a sense of who's going to be in the room with you. Who are the staffers that are going to be there? I mean, most of the time, I mean, it will be great if the member is there, but a lot of the time you might not have the member or the senator there. So making sure that you really take a little bit of time to research the staff, who's the likely staff that work on your issues, and see if there's any personal connection you have with them is, to me, a great way to do this, using tools like LinkedIn, even Googling them. It might be that you have gone to the same school with them, you have a friend in common, that you know someone who knows them. All those small little things of developing a relationship really matter, whether that's a direct relationship with a member of Congress or whether that's a connection with the staff. That can be really useful. But thinking about, again, as you're preparing for this day, thinking about your goals, right? If you go in to an office, what's your goal for the visit? What is the type of thing, if you could get something out of this visit, what would it be? That could simply be a connection on your issue, or it could be you're getting them to sign on to a piece of legislation that you want. So think about the potential points of contact, right? You have like the member, the chief of staff, the legislative assistant, the legislative correspondent. These are all different folks that are going to be in a congressional office that you might be meeting with. But again, thinking about not only that point of contact, but what would be a conversation that would be beneficial to them and beneficial to you. What are those goals? And again, I also want to just say, if you have questions throughout this presentation, you can put them in the question section here and type in and ask questions, and we can respond to those as we're talking. So the next step is really understanding and knowing your story. This, takes a little bit of practice, but don't assume that when you go into an office that, the staff really knows who you are. We wish it was the case that they did, but a lot of times they don't. So really being able to distill down into just a couple minutes who you are and why you're there and why the issue you're talking about is important and why it's frankly important to the member to do something about it, I think are all really important things. So as you dig into that story, think about who you are and why should they care, right? So is your company or business located in the district? Do you live in the district? Have you been involved in these issues? Are there employees you have there? What type of connection do you have to this member that can really show the need for a change or activation on an issue, or frankly, preventing a bill from happening if that's something you want to? So it's really thinking about who you are and what you care about, and frankly, why should the member care? So making that story relevant, could be everything from simple statistics, right? It could be growth of your business. It could be shrinkage of your business, right? That it hasn't grown, and there are reasons for that. And then really developing an ask. You know, one of the biggest mistakes that we've seen in this is sometimes we will get folks who go in front of members of Congress and the member will say, what can I do to help? And then they actually don't have an answer. They're not able to say, hey, here's what I really need you to do. So, you know, a lot of times we get into these meetings and we're just focused on, frankly, being on the defensive, and we don't have offense as well. And I think we need to have both. So really thinking about what are the things that the member should know, but then what could the member do if they do want to help? So, you know, and again, really thinking about the type of issue it is. How is the issue a federal issue? Hey, you guys are going through these slides really fast. Could we step back a little bit?
Yeah, we're on the federal issue. Is that right?
Yeah. So is this a federal issue, right? You know, really, this is where that research comes in, right? Has the member, you know, talked about this issue? What have they done around the issue? You know, what are other folks? Who are other sponsors of the legislation, right? This really goes to research. If there are other members nearby who have done something on this issue and this member hasn't, sometimes a little guilt is helpful, right? That the senator is sponsoring it, or there's another member of Congress nearby that's sponsoring it. We'd really like for you to sponsor too, or sometimes it works the other way. Thank you so much for taking leadership. We haven't seen leadership with other of these members, but you've been someone who's in the forefront and taking leadership in this, and we really appreciate that. And here's more that you can do. So both of those ways really work. So, and now you can move on to the next slide.
Perfect.
So, you know, once you're in that office, you're having that conversation, really at the end, you want to make sure that you make specific asks, right? And it can be beyond sponsoring a piece of legislation. It can be asking them to make a public statement. It can be making sure that they are voting a specific way, or that they can give you a contact with a federal agency on a specific issue if you need more follow-up. These are all basic things that they can do to help you. And again, making sure that you're really laying out how this relates to your personal story and how it helps people in the district and helps the member too. So follow-up to me is one of the most important things that we have seen sort of kind of a make or break when it comes to legislation, right? Really developing the relationship for the long term, being sure that you're sending a follow-up email, maybe even a handwritten note, I find to be really nice. Trying to think about what the next point of contact could be, making contact with someone in the district office and trying to set up a meeting in the district, maybe with employees of your business or other people at a shared group in the district. Thinking about other elected officials that could frankly follow up with a member of Congress for you and call the office as well, so that once you leave, there's someone else doing follow-up for you. And then what are the types of things that the member of Congress or the senator is doing that are in your area? What are ways that you can show more interaction? Is that attending town hall meetings? If they're doing calls, being on those calls in the district, but really thinking about, are there other shared groups and interests that can allow you to keep that engagement up? All right, so, you know, the basics, right, that we've learned in this call, and love to answer some more questions, is understand your audience, right? Understand that member of Congress, the staff, who they are, who you're talking to, really dig in and do that research. Know your story, which is, how does your story relate to what's going on in the area? Why is it important? Are you bringing in jobs? Has your business grown? Has it stalled? What are ways that you can make this be personal? And then have that specific researched ask. What can the office do? What can people do to help you to move this issue forward and to engage more? And making sure that in that ask, you've really built in the follow-up, right? What happens after the ask? What are the ways in which you're going to engage more? Are you going to send them more information? Are you going to have other people call on your behalf? Are you going to go to a meeting or ask for a meeting with the district director? What are ways that you can keep that conversation going? That's critical to developing a long-term relationship and making this lobby day really be a success. Don't think about it as just what happens in the room. It's really, what happens after the meeting that will make this be successful.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
And with that, Joe, I would love to take it over for a quick minute. I know that we
Sure.
haven't had any questions in this particular webinar, but we've received some feedback from our local chambers that one of their top policy priorities is workforce development. So I'd like to give a quick example of how to turn such a broad topic into a specific ask. Because as you can imagine, if I were to walk into my senator's office and say, I really care about workforce development, he would say, oh, well, yeah, me too. And then it would be a great feel-good moment, but there wouldn't be a specific directive. So it helps, first of all, to really have some data and some facts that are backing up your ask. You can pull out the data that 3 million jobs in STEM went unfilled just last year because our workforce is not equipped to handle those types of professions that are rapidly developing. And that's a big deal for my business because, for example, I could work in a tech industry. Say I'm in California, I work for a tech startup and I need skilled workers that can fill the roles in my company. And maybe something that I'm very interested in is funding education for STEM at the basic primary level. I've recognized an opportunity for STEM to be funded in our public elementary schools starting early and then developing that skill, and that's something that I want to bring to the attention of my members of Congress. Or maybe the reason I'm having a hard time filling these jobs in STEM is because of visa caps. And I'm unable to sponsor the visas that I need to hire immigrants to work at my company. So I can tell my senator, my congressman, that visa caps are really inhibiting the growth of my business. And I think that instead of having a visa cap for H-1B visas of 3,000, it needs to be doubled to 6,000. I'm not positive that those are the numbers, so don't quote me on that. I've been doing research on this recently, but the numbers haven't stuck in my brain. So those are some ways to get a little bit more specific beyond the general topics. If you would like any help in conducting research or developing specificity around the topic that's important to you, that you're bringing to your member of Congress, please feel free to reach out to me. And that's the kind of thing that I love doing, diving into the details and finding the facts that support our mission. So that would certainly be something that I'd be able to develop on your behalf.
And hi, this is Mike from the Campaign Workshop again. Just a reminder, if you do have any questions, feel free to put up your hand within the webinar, and we will be able to see your questions and have you be a part of the webinar. And then from there, I mean, I guess as we still have some time, and I think, moving forward, and Mary, you talk about the workforce issues that you're having. Are there any other issues that you think are common amongst the members that you've seen and the best way to approach them? And what your kind of top tips are on that when talking to members on the Hill?
Well, I think my number one piece of advice, when we saw the slide that said, tell your story, literally tell a story. These these members of Congress, the congressional staffers, they're people just like us, but they meet so many people in a day that the days run together, the people run together, and the asks run together too. So anything you can do to make your story personal, if you're talking about the border wall, if you live in Texas or California and the border wall would be cutting through your land, talk about why that's important to you and what that would mean to you and your business beyond just the policy practicalities of the topic.
Joe, I have two questions for you. My question number one is there a benefit with going with a coalition to my senator, congressman, or woman? And my second question to you, I can ask right after you answer this one.
Yeah, do you want me to take that?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so coalition, first of all, can be helpful if you're all on the same page, right? So the benefit of coalition is you're talking with a couple different voices about the same issue, and that can be very powerful and can show depth for a legislator, and that can be really compelling for them. The problem, right, that sometimes going in with a coalition is that if you don't talk together beforehand and make sure you have your message down, who's going to say what each of you are going to say, that it can be a bunch of people fighting for time. So I think coming in as a coalition can really help as long as you practice ahead of time.
Got it. And my second question is, after I have this meeting, do I leave anything behind? Do I leave anything about my organization? Do I leave my business cards? Do I give them a pamphlet about my organization? What do I leave behind?
Yeah, so this is really important. I think a pamphlet about your organization would be great. I think a business card is perfect to do, making sure that you're getting email addresses so that you can send something in writing after the meeting on the questions that you asked. Don't just assume that they're going to follow up with you, but a leave behind could be just a piece of paper. It could be a letter that you write if you know that you're not going to meet with a member of Congress, but you're meeting with staff. You could write a personal letter to the member of Congress to give to them that they will then hand to the member of Congress. And again, that will give you a response. I've seen lots of those tactics work.
And this is Mike as well, just to follow up, and we covered this a bit earlier, but also the most important thing to do is to keep it going, especially when it comes to keeping the issue local. Once you get back from the district, once you get back into the district, if your meeting produced any kind of follow-up items or things that they were going to send over to the district office, get in touch with the district office. Make sure they know who you are, and then to keep that issue moving and to ensure that it won't fall through the cracks or they'll move on to the next issue.
And as we may have mentioned in some of our Hill Day emails, we'll be putting together some materials for you that talks about the USHCC and our policy platform and policy goals. But we do recommend building out your own policy goals that are more specific to exactly what you want from your particular senator or representative. And I saw Louise commented #AccessToCapital. This access to capital is the #1 policy priority for the majority of small business owners. I believe 90% of small business owners are saying that the inability to access capital is hindering their success. So I wanted to quickly give everyone an example of a concrete policy way to advocate for better access to capital for Hispanic entrepreneurs. And this is just one example of many different policies that fit under the Access to Capital umbrella. The Minority Business Development Agency has been critical in helping Hispanic small businesses access capital. They are the SBA. They're similar to the SBA, Small Business Administration, but they're very minority business focused. And the president has suggested defunding the agency. So something that you could mention if you were lobbying on behalf of Access to Capital specifically is say, hey, institution is important to our members, and we want the federal government to continue to fund the MBDA. So that's just an example.
Perfect. And we have one other question that just came in from Eddie, and I think both Mary and Joe, you can field this. He asked if we can bring marketing materials to leave behind for our topic of concern during our visit.
And again, my suggestion is to make it, whatever you hand them, to make it be very focused on the issue, right? I think you absolutely could bring a letter with an example, or that has some statistics on the issue that you leave behind. That works. I think general marketing materials about your business sometimes it doesn't work. I think trying to make it be more specific, whatever you give them, about the issue that you're trying to make a change on and why, making those materials be specific to that's what I've seen get the best results. Yeah,
and to echo Mary's point from earlier today, specificity is the most important thing, and making sure, like Joe's saying, you have one particular topic that you're going in and trying to make action on. And if you have specificity that will back up that concern or back up the positive change that could happen from the member taking action, that's the way to go. You know, sometimes people are very excited about an issue and they have all sorts of information that it, kind of has every angle. And I think the likelihood that an office would keep that or use that is low, but if it's something that reinforces your ask, it can be strong and it can help reinforce the point after you leave.
Yeah. And again, really trying to make that personal connection with the staff, trying to take the time to know ahead of time where the member of Congress has been on this issue, why this issue could benefit people in the district. All of that can really be helpful for you for the long term and keeping that relationship going.
And this is just a reminder that if you're on the webinar now, you will have access to, within the webinar, there's a handout section, and we've put together, on behalf of the Chamber, a kind of one-pager that summarizes all the tips we talked about today on the webinar, and kind of provides a roadmap for making sure that you're taking the best approach to your meetings. So you can just access that through the webinar, and I believe there will also be a follow-up email providing that material, that one pager as well. Again, it looks like we have a question now. Yeah, we have another question on CDBG funds, and I think this is an extension on access to capital and how to approach that within your lobby visits.
So for those unaware, CDBG stands for the Community Development Block Grant Program. That's something that I would need to look into more specifically to better understand your questions. But if you'd like to reach me via email, you can find my contact information on the USHCC website. And feel free to ask as specific a question as you like. What I don't know, I will find out and get back to you. But I'm not totally sure how to respond at the moment.
And this is Mike again. I mean, I think just in general, pulling back from the specific issues and just reiterating what both Mary and Joe have said, especially when it comes to federal programs that either you have benefited from or that would benefit your business or the growth of your business. Again, I think if there are specific examples that you can point to of why that program should stay or why you know, it should be expanded, gives the member tools or their office tools to push that issue forward. And as much as you can show the direct impact, that's always the most helpful in the short amount of time you probably have in that meeting. Go ahead, Joe.
Right. Yeah, and I would say, and please reach out to Mary to get more information on specific issues that you might be talking about. I think that's another way so that when you are going to these offices that everyone is on the same page. So just one more thing on the key takeaways, right? Making sure that you're prepared, that you've really talked through your stories, that you know if other people are coming with you, that you've really taken the time to work together in coalition so that you all are both singing off the same song sheet together, right? So that you're not, competing for time, and then making sure that you're really engaging in that long-term follow-up and trying to set up some sort of in-district meeting after is also really important.
So just to wrap up with some of the logistics of the day, we are scheduling Hill Day meetings for both the morning and the afternoon. In the middle of the day, we have Lunch on the Hill, which is held in the Russell Senate building in the Kennedy Caucus Room. You'll be hearing from 5 different legislators that have signed up to speak, and they'll be talking about major issues such as Puerto Rico, #MeToo, access to capital, and more. So it's a good idea to map out where you're going, because even though the buildings are close together, I have been lost in them far too many times.
Yeah.
Yes,
and so overarching Legislative Summit is April 24th to 26th, and the Hill Day meetings will be happening April 26th, the last day. Remember that your chamber is allowed to register 2 members of your chamber as long as you're in good standing, and there is an additional registration to Hill Day. So if you want to confirm that, you have my email address. Just let me know and verify that you and your respective partner that is going with you from your chamber is also registered to be part of Hill Day. So those are different appointments, and it's a different registration process. So if you have any questions, please let us know. Also be aware that we will have a help desk during Legislative Summit. So if you have any questions the day of your meetings and you don't know where to go, you are lost, you don't know where a specific building is, there will be a help desk that can help you address all of these things. As Mary said, we'll have meetings in the morning and in the afternoon, with Lunch on the Hill being right in between, part of your agenda. And just to give you, again, a summary, you will be given a Hill Day packet on behalf of the USHCC. It'll have your individualized Hill Day schedule, any relevant contact information for the day of, the tips that were mentioned in this webinar, a map of the Hill Day, and an example of a thank you letter for meeting with each of the individuals that you meet with that day. So that is something that we will have ready for you, and all meetings will take place between up until 11:30, which is when our Lunch on the Hill will begin. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself, Mary, or myself, and we'll be happy to help. And we just really want to thank Joe and Mike and his team for making sure that we're able to provide the service. And I don't know if there's any more pending questions that have come in, but be rest assured that you'll also have access to this content to share with your board members if they weren't able to make it on the call. If your president or your team member wasn't able to make it, we'll send you a link that wraps up this webinar. That way you can share this content and make sure that everyone has all the tips and tools that they need for Hill Day. But I'll kick it over to Joe and Mike for wrap up.
No, I just want to thank you all for having us.
Thanks so much.
Pleasure. And Joe, any parting words on your end?
No, just keep that relationship going, and thanks again for taking the time to hear us today.
Thank you all.
Great.